force of law and can be enforced as if they were laws, there may be a half dozen that are actually worthwhile. Those few worthwhile regulations can be handled, or functions can be handled by the Department of Interior. We don't need the Environmental Protection Agency. So essentially everything it's doing needs to be aborted. They define areas, and actually in this they're attacking Texas, where you cannot expand any business without getting permission from the EPA, because you've got to have an environment impact statement on it, and that could take forever. I believe those things are being used for political purposes to punish Texas, and because there's really no logic behind how they're applying them. Obviously, Obamacare. Obamacare is unconstitutional, and I'm hoping that it is declared unconstitutional, but regardless whether it is or not, what I say is that in our government we have three branches. We have the executive branch, the judicial branch, and the legislative branch. The executive branch has pushed so many unconstitutional regulations, czars, offices, that it doesn't have the power to do according to the Constitution. The checks and balances provide that there are two other branches, the judicial and the legislative branch, that are supposed to stop it. The judicial can only operate reactively. That means it is the legislative branch's job to be the first line of defense against a rogue president. The legislative branch has not done its number one job. Its number one job is not think up new laws. Its number one job is to be the check and balance against our founding fathers would have called it an imperial president. I'm calling it a rogue president. So there are the number of regulations. There were like 40,000 regulations implemented in the last year. I can't think of one of them that was for a worthwhile purpose. Another, just an area where this is not an immediate, instant gratification area, but the Department of Education, I believe, ought to be abolished. The Department of Education was formed because we were like number 5 in the world in our school system. Well, now we're number 55 in the world because of the Department of Education. The Department of Education has turned our schools into indoctrination halls, not education. Thank you. I see the X.
Okay, Al, since you brought up the subject of the EPA, you can't really talk about the EPA without addressing the United Nations and their global warming hysteria, and the EPA is just following in lockstep with the United Nations and global warming. So how do you feel we should address the United Nations?
I'm pretty sure you're referring to Agenda 21, and how did I know that? Yes, absolutely right. Global warming and the EPA are really subsets of something that is much bigger and much more ominous. And it's, if you're not familiar with it, a United Nations program that President George H.W. Bush signed on to in 1992 in Rio. Is that 92? Yes. It is a serious threat to our liberty, a very serious threat. Global warming is just one of the tools. Global warming obviously is a hoax. We all knew that long ago. But the bigger problem is that the United Nations is not here to serve us. The United Nations is something that we are being forced to support, and it is being used as a tool to dismantle our liberty, dismantle our Constitution. I believe the United States should pull out of the United Nations. I believe the United Nations, we can use that real estate for much better purposes. That, the couple of acres that UN building is sitting on is probably worth $300 million. We can certainly put it to a lot better use. We don't have to pay people to insult us. They can do it from over there.